How's it going, guys? Welcome back to episode 7 of Assassin's Creed Odyssey Let's Talk, where I'm basically playing through Assassin's Creed Odyssey and talking about different aspects of ancient Greek life, civilization, literature, myth, and things that I know that might sort of pop up as I play through the game. In this episode, I'm talking about the Athenian epic hero Theseus. So Theseus is mostly well known for his story with the Minotaur, but episode 7 I talk about his earlier life and things called the Labour of Theseus, where he undertakes 6 different sort of fights ridding the world of bad people. I didn't mean to talk about Theseus so early on, but here we are. I accidentally killed a mercenary too early on in the game. So, I hope you enjoy. And as always, please, if you do like what's going on here, remember to like, leave a comment, and maybe even subscribe. Let's get on. The reason that I'm talking about Theseus so early on in the game is because at the end of this clip, I accidentally kill a mercenary who's carrying Theseus's gauntlets or braces, Theseus's braces, which is one of those legendary pieces of equipment. I figured, well, might as well talk about Theseus here and now, and then the next time we meet him, or rather do some of his quests and the side missions, which comes later on in this game, I can talk about Theseus a bit more critically, which will be fun. But to start, who is Theseus? Why is he a big deal? Well, essentially, Theseus is the Athenian mythical hero. So he's a hero that Athens adopts as their own, founder, I suppose. And this is in direct contrast to Heracles, or you may know him as Hercules. And the reason that Heracles isn't quite suitable, I'll go into a bit more detail later on, is because he's a bit of an oaf. He's all brains, no, that's not right. He's all brawn and no brains. And so Theseus gets adopted as the Athenian epic hero. And he claims his lineage through Eric Theseus on his father's side and Pelops on his mother's.
Lost something?
Not lost. Stolen.
Stentor sent me. Said you've been having trouble with spies.
I'd take an Athenian spy over a Spartan traitor. Either way, he must be found. He took a tablet with vital intelligence.
Where's your spy? Is he still in the camp?
Wouldn't need you if I knew. I doubt he's still here. Can't have gone far, though. He was injured when he took out the guard.
This doesn't sound like something a Spartan would do.
He could be an imposter. We've had raids on our supplies recently. And Megaris has more mercenaries than a goat has ticks. And what man would turn their back on Sparta?
I'll get him and your tablet. Did you see which direction he went?
The men said he went towards the hill. Easier to avoid pursuit in that terrain.
Anything you can tell me that might help?
The area is hotly contested, but Sparta is winning. We are pushing the Athenians back, but due to the war, the forests and mountains have become a hive of bandits and mercenaries.
I mean about where your spy might have gone.
He's injured, and there's a spring up there in the forest. If it was me, I would have headed there.
I'll be back soon with your tablet.
The mountains and forests of Megaris are dangerous, and he surely didn't work alone.
I'm more than capable of handling your spy. Here.
Right, so Eric Theseus then is the basically founder of Athens, known as the eponymous hero. Basically who gives Athens its name and finds it. Pelops is the founder of the area that comes to be known as the Peloponnese, And you may know Pelops, if you know a little bit about myths, as the guy who has a chipped shoulder because his father, Tantalus, tried to feed him up to the gods. And unfortunately, even though most of the gods knew what this was and refused to eat Pelops, Demeter, who was busy worrying about the state of Penelope and where she was, because Penelope has been kidnapped by Hades at this point, and because Demeter is so distracted, she eats a part of Pelops, his shoulder. And Tantalus is the geezer who is stuck in Hades, or Tartarus rather, and he's always hungry, and whenever he reaches up, so he's teased by, like, I think it's a fig tree that's hanging over him, but every time he tries to lean forward and bites it, it moves away. And I think he's also in some water, and every time he tries to drink the water, it shrinks away from him, and he's condemned for that, for trying to feed up his own child to the gods. But that doesn't really have much of a detail, apart from the fact that Theseus becomes known as the hero who unifies Athens and Attica in something called the Synoikismos. So it's basically he's basically a unification hero. Now Theseus' story, on his mortal side, starts with a man called King Aegisthus, who is currently the king of Athens. Don't mind me here, I'm just upgrading and selling equipment. Now Aegisthus, he is scared because he's been married twice now, and neither of his marriages have produced an heir, a male heir. I think any child actually. And his brother, Pallas, has got 50 sons who think that they all have a right to a bit of Athens. And Aegisthus is worried. So he goes to the oracle at Delphi and he asks the oracle, "What should I do?" And the oracle gives him a prophecy that roughly means, or roughly translated into something along the lines of, "Do not open the wine flagskin until you have returned home." Aegisthus has absolutely no idea what this means. So he decides to pay his friend King Pythias a visit. King Pythias is the king of a place called Trojan, which is where Theseus is from. Now King Pythias already at this time has a reputation for being wise, pietous, holy. And Aegisthus tells him that I've got this weird prophecy come from the oracle. What do you think it means? King Pythias already knows immediately what the oracle is talking about. The oracle is basically saying, do not have children, so don't open the wine flag skin, which is basically his penis, right? Basically don't let your seed loose until you return home. Don't have sex with anyone until you return home, because the next time you have sex, you're gonna have kids. And King Pythias at this time is thinking, you know what? It would be great to find a way to unify our great islands, particularly with Athens, because Athens is a power state at the moment. So he devises a plan for his daughter Aethra to sleep with King Aegisthus. She does so, and Aegisthus tells her in the morning, I would love to stay here with you, but I've got a family back home, and I've got duties in Athens. But he also tells her that he will put a sword and a pair of sandals under a boulder, and that should there be a child born from their evening spent together, when he is old enough and when he is strong enough, he should move the boulder and bring the sword and sandals to me, and thereby claim his birthright of Athens. Cool. So this sets up Theseus' story and history, basically. And when Theseus comes of age, his mother basically tells him, "There's a sword and a pair of sandals up there. Move that boulder, claim it, and I can tell you more about your dad."
That's what I'm looking for.
So Theseus does so. And Aethra basically tells him, "Yes, Theseus, look, your father is the great King Aegeus of Athens. But during that evening when Aegeus and Aethra lay together, Aethra was visited. Some sources say she was visited, some say she just felt like it. She was visited by Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and told that she should head to a nearby island and pour libations or pay tribute to a charioteer of Pelops. And as she does so, she's raped by Poseidon. And so Theseus comes to be the child of both King Aegeus of Athens and the god Poseidon. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it's not that uncommon for Greek heroes. What can you do, eh? Greek myth all over the place. So, we've got Theseus now, who is suddenly the rightful heir of Athens and the son of Poseidon, the patron of Trojan. Troezen, I don't think I'm saying that right. So on the evening that Theseus finds out, King Pythias comes to him, and it's all arranged that he should travel by sea to Athens to visit his father and let him know, "What's up, Dad? You have a son. It is me." But what also happens is King Pythias tells Theseus exactly why he shouldn't take a long walking route and why he should go by ocean. And it's because there are so many monsters and evil people on the way from Trojan to Athens. And what's happened, apparently, and I don't understand this because I think the timeline's a bit off, but what happens is that the great hero Heracles and his 10 odd labours happens and it's over and done with. But there becomes an incident where Heracles has gone to visit an island, almost on like a victory tour, and he's killed, I think it's a son of a king called Epietus. I'll put the spelling up because I'm not sure about that either. And the king at the time is obviously not happy. I mean, Heracles has come here as a guest and killed his son.
You did well. Thank you. What do you want? Who are you?
I'm the one who's going to return the tablet you stole. Why did you steal the tablet?
Because I could sell it. The Athenians would pay good drachmae for this.
How did you get into the camp?
Spartans never suspect their own. Too busy looking down on the rest of us. Malakes.
Give it to me. I'm not leaving without it.
There's no winners in this war. But there are opportunities. Perhaps we could come to an arrangement?
What arrangement would that be?
Here, take the tablet. And this, for your troubles. No one knows who I am. Nobody else needs to die here.
Go! Make sure I never see your face again.
I should get this tablet back to the commander.
Okay, ignore what I was just saying. Basically, Heracles completes his 12 labours and he visits an island called Ochilia to compete in an archery competition to basically win a bride, Iole. He wins, but he is refused the bride by the king Eurytus and his sons, except for one of his sons, Hippias, who thinks Heracles should get the bride. And Eurytus basically says, listen pal, you've killed your wife and kids before. What's to say you won't do the same to my daughter? Obviously Heracles is annoyed, but he can't really do too much about it because, yeah, fair enough, he did kill his wife and kids. Soon afterwards, an incident happens where Autolycus, the grandfather of Odysseus, steals some cattle, and Heracles is found, or not found, but held responsible for this. In order to clear his name, Heracles and Hippias go to find the cattle. But suddenly Heracles is met with a fit of madness, most likely sent from Hera, and he throws Hippias from the walls of Tiryns, killing him. It's decided that Heracles, in order to pay for this, should become a slave, do slave service for a figure or queen called Omphale.
Off we go now.
And Heracles spends a year as a slave to Omphale, which is really, like, very effeminizing of this great hero, because he's like this big macho guy and he's been reduced to this slave for a woman. And that's why Heracles isn't particularly the best Greek hero. Like, he's not a figure that the Greeks wanted to adopt as their hero, because he's quite questionable. Some of his morals, his stories, his reasons, and he's not the smartest guy. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, shall we say. So with Heracles away for a year, loads of villains start popping up.
Did you locate the
And
one
King
responsible?
Pythias recalls all of this to Theseus.
Here's your precious tablet. You should be more careful in future.
Thank you.
Turn around and go home.
But whatever King Pythias thought would happen, the exact opposite did. Heracles had been fired up
Need help with anything,
by the
Sheila?
valor.
Lost
No,
another
Theseus
3
had long been
patients
fired
this
up.
morning. A family. They got caught between a group of Athenians and Spartans. This war needs to end.
I'm sure there will be peace. Soon.
There will be no end unless someone does something about it. Look, there must be some way to at least get them away from here. Take their food, weapons, boats even. I'll pay you.
So I have to sink the Athenian fleet.
That's exactly it. Will you do it?
I'll help you.
Thank you. You saved me.
May the gods guide you.
Theseus has long been fired up by the acts of Heracles, and he considers himself a bit of a hero as well, or that's what he wants to be. So as he's listening to King Pythias tell him about all these dangers and worries and risks, Theseus is sat there thinking, I'm going to kill all of them. And so rather than travel to Athens by sea, he walks. And this is where we get something known as the Labours of Theseus. Now it's very easy to sit there and think, gosh, Theseus, I thought you were meant to be smart. Why have you decided to fight all these bad people? Well, first of all, like just in terms of the myth, visiting his father with nothing to his name apart from a sword and a sandal doesn't sit right with Theseus. You know, he's not going to come to a hero's welcome or anything, is he? He's just going to be that guy who took an easy route and was born into kingship. But for the Athenians, who adopted Theseus as their hero, they needed someone who represented what they considered Athenian values. Now, Athenian values is such a loose thing because it's like these are values that are regarded and revered throughout the ancient world. So nothing about them is particularly Athenian in any sense. But the Athenians, they considered themselves brave and smart, but also cunning and strong. And the problem with Heracles is that, first of all, so many different places have claimed lineage to Heracles. And it's easy to see why. When Heracles was about 18, he kills the Thespian lion. But what he does is he's tracking this lion for 50 days. And the king who's asked him to do this has 50 daughters. And each night gives a daughter to Heracles. And Heracles has children with each one. So fine, it's easy to claim lineage to Heracles because it's so modelled up and he's been all around the world. Theseus, not so much. And the stories behind Theseus are smart and clever and, I use inverted commas, Athenian. But Theseus himself, as with most Greek and ancient Greek heroes, are looking for something called kleos, which is loosely translated as glory. Particularly for heroes with divine parents, so demi-heroes and demigods. For them, the deal is quite rough because they have all the strength and skill and speed and intelligence, say, of the gods, but none of the immortality. And as we go on into this game and we explore Achilles in the Trojan War, it's something that's going to become more and more apparent. This idea that I need to make a name for myself because I've got the rough end of the stick in terms of divine lineage. So if Theseus goes and kills all these heroes? If Theseus goes and kills all these monsters, he will be remembered. And I mean, fair enough, like, I'm talking about him right now.
I should get the treasure and leave quietly.
Now, Theseus is obviously, well, not obviously, but Theseus is most well known for his killing of the Minotaur. But before he gets there, he establishes a name for himself by taking out these threats that have cropped up in Heracles' absence. So on his way from Trojan to Athens, he meets and kills 6 monsters. The first of these is called Periphates. Periphates is yet another one of these demigods. He's got divine lineage through Hephaestus, the god of the forge, and Anticlea. Now, according to some versions of the myth,
If you're willing to work
Periphetes
for
used
it,
to rob.
I pay my crew more than you'll
Oh no,
ever make here.
he did. In all versions of the myth he robbed, but in some he had one eye, like a cyclops, and was lame in one leg, like his father. He used a bronze club, and he used to kill the travellers along the way from Athens to Trojan. What Theseus does is he tricked Periphetes by checking if the club was really made of bronze. Periphetes is not the smartest guy either, and he's quite boastful. He hands Theseus the club to prove it, and Theseus, of course, whacks him round the head and kills him. And that's the first labour completed. And I think it's quite telling to see that Theseus now has a club in a very similar way to Heracles had a club. So Heracles got his club after he killed the Nemean lion, basically his first labour, and Theseus has got a bronze club after killing Periphetes, his first labour. And I suspect this is deliberately done to remind the Greek world that Theseus is being compared with the greatest hero of all times. But he's going to go above and beyond, and he's going to be better. So Theseus continues on his way to Athens, and he meets another monster. And I'm not sure if these are like your stereotypical huge 10 feet tall, ugly, brutish monsters, or if they're just bad people. But this guy is called Sinus. And what he did was he used to trick or force his victims to help him pull down 2 pine trees. And as they were doing this, he would tie them to each end of the pine tree, and then let the pine trees flick back up and tear his victims apart. When Theseus comes, he does the exact same thing. So it becomes a trope that Theseus uses his wit and intelligence to kill his monsters or foes using the same methods that they use. Like some sort of skewed sense of justice, I suppose. Now when Theseus kills Sinus, Perigune, Sinus' daughter, runs into a forest, and the forest understands her and says, "We're gonna hide you." Theseus searches far and wide for her, basically promises not to injure her and to respect her. And they sleep together, and Theseus has a child with her called Melanippus, his first male child. Some say he forced her, some say she consented. We're going to explore Theseus a lot more later to determine if he really is a suitable epic hero. The next monster that Theseus meets along his way is called the Cromonian Sow, which is like a big pig, I think. So this area, Cromion, is in the northern part of ancient Greece. And this pig is terrorizing the whole area. there's not much to it other than Theseus shows up and kills this sow as soon as he arrives. So by this time he's making a name for himself. Now this sow is supposedly belongs to a witch called Phae. In some versions of the myth it's a massive pig. In other versions of the myth, Phae was a robber who dwelt in Cromion and killed with unbridled spirit. She was called a sow, so she was called a pig because of her life and her manners, and Theseus killed her. So either it's a massive pig that's running amok through the north of ancient Greece, or it's a horrible witch killing people. Either way, Theseus deals with it. And he continues on his way.
You won't leave here. She's right there.
The fourth monster, the fourth labour that Theseus undertakes, is a man called Screon. Actually a son of Poseidon, who lived atop a cliff on the Saronic coast in Corinth. And what Screon would do is force travellers to wash his feet. And as they were bent down, he would kick them off the cliff into the mouth of a snapping sea turtle, a giant turtle that lived just below the cliff. Now we already know what Theseus is going to do. He tricks Screon by telling Screon to wash his own feet, basically saying he's been travelling for so long, he can't possibly do what Screon is asking him to do without at least having him wash his feet. And once Screon is bent over, bam, Theseus kicks him off the cliff into the mouth of the snapping sea turtle. Sick. Now the fifth labour is a king. Theseus meets a king. King of Eleusis, Kerchiron, or Sicyon. Not sure about the pronunciation there either. Now this king was a strong man who liked to challenge people to wrestling matches. And he made a fair bargain. He said that if you beat me, you can have my kingdom. But if I beat you, you will die. And well, there never were any winners. Theseus here realizes he isn't going to beat the king through brute strength alone, and so he uses his cunning. He tires the king out and overpowers him. So rather than besting him in brute physical strength alone, he bests the king through his intelligence and his skill. And it's said that from here Theseus started the sport of wrestling. According to some myths, and this is why Theseus is a bit dodgy too, he helps himself to Sicyrion's daughters after taking over the kingdom, and he has his way. And he's visited by a man called Hippothous, who comes to him and says, "Can I have my grandfather's kingdom back?" And supposedly Theseus just hands it over to him once he learns that Hippothous is also a son of Poseidon, who Theseus is now claiming his own birth from. Now the sixth and final labour of Theseus,
Ella.
excluding what he does with the Minotaur, is when he kills a man called Procrustes. Procrustes is yet another son of Poseidon, and he invites all travellers on their way to help him with the blacksmithing task. But of course, as you can probably guess, he kills everyone that tries to help. What Procrustes has is a bed for travellers to rest, and he sets himself up as a good host because he offers them a place to sleep. But in a sick, twisted way, he likes to fit his guests to the bed. So, he would lie the guests on the bed and lock them in place. If they were too tall, so if their feet were dangling off the edge of the bed, he would chop their legs off with his axe. If they were too small, so they didn't fit the bed like a fitted sheet should, he would tie their hands and their feet to the posts of the bed and stretch them out, basically ripping them in half. And again, Theseus uses his cunning and his wit to trick Procrustes into lying on the bed. And I suppose it went something like, "Why don't you show me how it's meant to be done?" or something along those lines. But whatever the case, Procrustes lies down on the bed and he's too tall. So Theseus picks up his axe and chops his legs off. Procrustes is still too tall. So Theseus also chops his head off as well. And with that, he's earned a reputation for himself. He's rid the world of these threats and monsters. And he started to find his way as a hero. Now, he's not very far from Athens at this point. But before he gets there, he decides he's gonna try to clean himself of all the murder and gain some sort of forgiveness. He wants to purify himself. And in this way set himself up as a pietist culture hero. So he cleans himself, he bathes in the river Cephisus, and basically gains forgiveness for all his murdering.
Ella.
So now he's pretty safe and pretty clear to enter Athens. But even before he gets there, his name is well known. I mean, he's been going around ridding the world of all these threats and evil people. And I suppose they must have just been ordinary people, rather than mythological monsters that we know. But anyway, many travellers are aware of Theseus at this point, many Athenians under King Aegisthus' rule have probably travelled across the lands safely now and heard whispers of Theseus' name running about.
Come on.
So by the time Theseus enters Athens, he's already got this great reputation about himself, and he's already gathering cheers from the citizens as he arrives. This draws the attention of Queen Medea, who we first meet as part of Jason and the Argonauts. Medea at this point is an evil witch. She's the daughter of the sun god Helios, and she's already helped Jason escape by killing her own brother, and she's killed her two sons. She's fled to Athens to escape basically death. Medea doesn't trust Theseus. She feels quite threatened by him because he's just come in as this massive hero, gathering the favour of people. And that's obviously a threat to King Aegisthus' kingship and therefore Medea's royalty. So she makes a plan with Aegisthus, who doesn't know this is Theseus at this point, to poison him at dinner. Theseus arrives, he's quite humble, because I guess this is what Athenians like, a humble hero who doesn't brag too much about himself, even though he's saved the world of 6 dangerous threats. So he's eating dinner, making small talk with his father, who doesn't yet know that this is his own son sat in front of him. Theseus keeps his sword and sandals hidden until dinner time. And he pulls the sword out, maybe to cut up some meat. And Aegisthus spots this. But just before Theseus takes a sip of the poisoned wine, King Aegisthus dashes the cup from Theseus' hands and recognizes him as his son. So Theseus is now in Athens, where he is supposedly the rightful heir.
This'll help me keep it in.
But if we remember back to the 50 sons of Pallas, who still want Athens for themselves, they're annoyed and they're scared because they thought the kingship would surely be ours. And all of a sudden there's a new viable threat to that, an heir of King Aegisthus that they need to get rid of. So the 50 sons, they split into 2. And one half of this army marches towards Athens, while the other half hide, planning to ambush Theseus from behind. Now these 50 brothers, they're travelling with a man who basically betrays them. And he tells Theseus about these plans, about half of the army waiting, lying in wait to ambush him. And we already know at this point Theseus likes to deliver justice, or some sense of justice, by using the same methods against his attackers. So while the ambushers wait for Theseus, he sneaks behind them and ambushes all 25 and kills all 25. So either these guys are just rubbish, they ain't about it, or Theseus is just so good. And I suppose it makes for a great story for the Athenians to, I don't know what the word, but it provides like a role model for them of this great valorous hero who can slay 25 men at once. So with these 25 brothers dead, the other 25 who were marching towards Athens leg it, they flee, they ain't about it. And essentially with this, Theseus's lineage and Theseus, not lineage, but his kinship and his route to royalty is clear. He's now home with his father, set himself up as the son of Poseidon and the son of the king of Athens. He's already made a name for himself by ridding the world of all of these threats, much in a similar way that Heracles did. But with Heracles, he rid the world of monsters, like lions and hydras and stags. Theseus's heroes, no, Theseus's monsters are a lot more human. And I think there's a deliberate blurring there between the definition of what a monster is, which the Athenians can relate to. Theseus lives in a world where monsters are hidden as humans, and he has to be a lot more sly and cunning than Heracles ever had to be. And these are the kind of traits that the Athenians like to view themselves as having. And we see this again with Odysseus. Odysseus isn't particularly an Athenian hero, but the Athenians like him for his cunning. The Greek world likes him for his cunning. Whereas Achilles, the greatest warrior perhaps, doesn't really get adopted as much. By the Athenians anyway. But of course, Theseus' story doesn't quite end here. And as he gets older, his story becomes less and less amazing. He just does silly things. But I suppose the biggest thing that he does is slay the Minotaur. The most famous thing that he does, which I'm going to talk about a lot more later. And I also want to explore Theseus as a hero, because he sounds great. Slaying all these men, ridding the world of a half human, half bull. But what did he do along the way? That kind of stuff never gets explored. Like, it's just made to seem that he was given, for example, daughters of the people he killed. But is that the case? That needs a bit more exploration. But Theseus, by killing these 6 monsters in clever, intelligent ways, gets adopted as the cult hero of Athens. And as I explained at the beginning, he gets known as a hero who unifies Athens and Attica, all of Attica. The Sinokismos. Basically the coming together of the different households. And I guess that makes sense because he has already been set up as a son of Athens, son of Trojan, and a son of Poseidon. And this kind of mythological hero allows Athens to dominate and expand their empire because the different themes and different islands have one figure they all have in common. And there it is, the braces of Theseus. Now I need to leg it because I don't want to get killed. And that's basically it for this episode, really. Just a quick introduction to Theseus, some of his lesser known stories and myths, and how he came to be such a prominent figure. The next time we meet Theseus, I'm going to explore obviously the Minotaur, how that comes about, and what happens to Theseus and his line, and how he meets such a sad end, I suppose, for it. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that. I know it kind of cut out towards the end, but essentially I was just saying that's really the beginning of Theseus' story and his life. And the next time I come across Theseus, which I think happens towards like the end of the game in Thebes somewhere, I'm going to try and talk a bit more about the Minotaur and Theseus's life after, becoming the great hero or whatever. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to tune in for next time. And if you haven't already, click that little bell thing so you get notified when my videos are out. Peace.